welcome back to the Bleeding Hearts Club, where we alchemize pain into something beautiful together. I'm your co-host Shroot. I'm an astrologer who helps you use astrology as a self-reflective tool for healing and growth, and this is my co-host.
Hi, y'all. This is Stevie. I use they and she pronouns. I'm your tarot reader, Reiki practitioner, mental health worker. I don't know. All of those things.
I love it. Well, we are so excited to bring you a new episode. Happy Eclipse season. We would love to know how Eclipse season is treating you. We know it's been a lot. So we hope that you and your loved ones are holding on okay. We have some exciting stuff we want to talk about. We're definitely going to talk about our Saturn return just ended, and we know Saturn returns are starting for a lot of people. Well, they have started, so we want to get a little bit into a Saturn return. We'll talk about that and give you some pointers for processing if you've just finished yours, as well as some pointers if you've just started yours. And then we'll do a horoscope. But first, before we get started, we are currently obsessed, and we are just so moved and overjoyed at Alysa Liu, who is a figure skater for the American team in the Olympics. And I'm going to use all the wrong terminology. It's going to be very clear we're not sports people. But she's a figure skater, and what's really special about her is she won gold. God knows I couldn't tell you anything more specific than that. But she won gold, and she did it after quitting. She was the youngest person, I think, to win worlds and to land like a triple axel or something like that. And it was something more than a triple axel, but yeah. And she was 13 when she did that, and then she decided a couple years ago that she wanted to quit and leave skating for good because she felt like she was clocked in a little too hard, and that it was a job, and she didn't know anything outside of skating because she was a child. And at 20, for her to come back, and she started her training 7 months before the Olympics and just immediately locked in, which is like historic and unheard of. And I think what's so special about her, at least from my perspective, is that like you should look up her performances if you haven't seen them. I don't know what they're called, her routines, her programs, God knows. But you should watch them because she's a Leo, and it shows. She is radiant. I mean, she just oozes joy in her performances. And she basically came back from retirement and said, hey, we're gonna do this completely my way, and that like I'm going to do what I want. I'm going to practice how I want. I'm going to perform to the songs I want, aka Lady Gaga. And she just completely decided to do the sport her way. She went and pierced her upper smiley, I forgot what that, frenulum, I think it's, I could be wrong on that too. But it's like a piercing that you can see when you smile. And she's got her hair dyed. She's like a little alt baddie, and like it's just so exciting to see a young girl be able to win and break these records and do all this historic stuff on her own terms, and not have to be listening to like what these old freaking men who want to run her like a drill sergeant. Like I think her and Simone Biles, it seems like, at least in the US, I can't speak to what's going on internationally, but it seems like there's a culture changing where these young athletes are being able to have more of a voice in how they show up and how they perform and how they compete. And I'm just so moved by it. And so Stevie mentioned that they wanted to talk about it, and it made me really happy. So that's my little soapbox on it. I'd love to know your thoughts, Stevie.
Yes. Okay, everyone. The other day I was like, sure, we should talk about Alyssa Liu. And then I went to sleep. And then I woke up to like links and think pieces and just a wall of text in both mine and Shroot's like individual thread, but also our group chat. Like Andrew had no context, I'm sure.
I can't help it. I got excited.
But that's okay. That's okay. Yeah, I forget that Olympic sports exist until it's the Olympics. And I definitely like, I forget about the Winter Olympics, especially, even though like I love to watch figure skating. I love it so much. It's so beautiful. It's so whimsical. It's so magical. And RIP Michelle Trachtenberg, like Ice Princess for life. It's just mesmerizing. Um, but there was something about Alyssa Liu that I think just knowing that she retired at literally before she even turned 18, she was like 16, I think, and just wanted to like know what it was like to be a teenager, to like prepare for college, to be with friends, to have fun, to travel. Like this decision that she made to break away from the thing that she was so good at, she was bred for basically, and to say like, okay, actually like I'm not feeling fulfilled. I'm not feeling like this is generative to me anymore. This is actually taking too much away from my livelihood and my fulfillment, and I don't want to do it anymore. Like just a decision like that in general is so brave and it's courageous, especially when that's the thing that you are known for. When there's so much pressure and exposure around what you're good for. I think of like the like gifted child to burnout pipeline, and it's done so much damage to so many people. I was not a gifted child. Thank God. Sorry, y'all. I was spared a little bit, but boy, do I know burnout. Um, I just feel really, really inspired by her because her performances, her like, I don't know, like Shroot said, she's a Leo and it shows, and she just looks so free. She looks so like loose, I guess, like loose and free, and she's having fun, and she has such a big smile. And I think knowing that about her, the very limited stuff that I know about her, and just seeing where she is, like in these, are they performances? Are they competitions? I don't know. Her doing the thing like literally moves me to tears because I see that she reclaimed it for herself, that she got to do it her way, that she didn't, I guess, like prioritize the pressure of winning or the competition itself. Like she just showed the world what she could do, and she did it on her terms. And in doing so, she really just like broke the glass ceiling, opened the doors, opened the windows for so many people to just reclaim themselves, reclaim their joy, reclaim their creativity. Oh my God, it's exhilarating. And then there's like a thing that she does in one of her programs. What are these words? Where she like literally, she's skating, she's twirling, and then she like falls on her knees and like slides on her knees, and then she twirls while she's on her knees and like shakes her head. It's, I'm levitating. I'm in another world, like Bay Area supremacy, East Bay supremacy. I love it so much. It's beautiful, and I feel a proximity to it, even though I've done no work. I cannot even stand on skates of any kind, land or ice. Um, yeah, and it feels like just an invitation. The thing that all these cards have been saying, like, just do it. Just have fun. Don't take it as seriously. Just try just to try. Like, release yourself. Release your inhibitions. Feel the rain on your skin.
No one else
Yeah,
can feel it for you.
it's true. It's so true. But yeah, I'm at a high. Shout out to her. I love her down. And what an icon. What an icon and a legend.
Did you ever watch Stick It?
I'm sure I did, but I have no memory of
You
it.
should rewatch it because I feel like I need to make like a TikTok about this, but like I feel like she embodies the Stick It energy and the Stick It. It's literally my favorite movie. I'm obsessed with it, and it's basically a bunch of gymnasts. It's if you remember the little vocal thing where it's not called gymnastics. Um, so, yeah, but they're like basically they're so used to kind of being told what to do by these like old, stuffy adults, and it's a bunch of girls that band together and decide that they want to compete their way. And so like that's basically what the whole movie's about. And so it just yeah, when I was watching her, it just reminded me so much of Stick It, and like it was just, like that's my favorite movie. It filled me with so much joy. I just yeah, I love to see young girls living life on their terms, and I love to see them standing up to adults that are trying to tell them that that's not how the world works. I love to see them be able to show the world that actually no, that is how the world works, and like you're not going to stop young girls from being themselves and getting to live out loud anymore. Like we're not standing for that. And I'm yeah, I'm very moved by it. So thanks for bringing that up. Thanks for sending me down that rabbit hole.
Thanks for going down that rabbit hole. I think it's such a like I needed to see it for sure because I think I don't even know, maybe Shroot, maybe this was at the beginning of my Saturn return or something where I like ended my relationship. I just turned 26 and I was like the 26 of it all is too real right now. And suddenly I am on the other side of my 20s, even though that doesn't mean anything. Like, but it does in the way that we're socialized. And I just looked at so many aspects of my life and who I've become and like what my relationships looked like and how small I got. And then I had to blow it up. Like I just had to like start over. And then towards the end of my Saturn return, I got small again and I like really lost so much of myself. And so seeing her so young, reclaiming her life, doing it on her terms, I think it's just a reminder that we can step away and come back, but we can come back better, different, more vibrant. And that makes a huge difference in what we can achieve and what we can do and how we can be. So, yeah.
That's gorgeous. And I love the segue, perfect segue into the Saturn return. I'm gonna give like a quick definition just so we're all on the same page. But essentially, Saturn in the sky has to do with our sense of responsibility, our sense of discipline, our sense of limits. It's like the passage of time and the idea that time is a finite resource in terms of our existence as humans, our ability to be alive. We're not immortal. And it rules kind of like the structures that hold us up. But I call it the structures that hold us up and hold us together because Saturn rules the skin, Saturn rules the hair, Saturn rules our bones, Saturn rules our muscles. Like it's literally the stuff that holds us up and holds us together. But then it also rules the structures of our society. It rules our power relations, how we kind of navigate the hierarchies and the structures of the societies that we're a part of. So capitalism is a structure, patriarchy is a structure, et cetera, et cetera. So, when you go through a Saturn return, it's something that happens once approximately every 30 years. It starts typically, it depends, everybody's a little bit different depending on your Saturn placement and, everything. But typically it starts around age 27 and kind of goes into age 30. And then sometimes it's a little bit sooner, sometimes a little bit later, just depending on your Saturn placements and what the sky's up to. But the Saturn return is when the Saturn returns to the section of your chart that it was in when you were born. And so that only happens once about every 30 years. And so I come from a culture, for example, in Hinduism, it's a very, very, very auspicious kind of marking of time where you're kind of considered to have three different phases of your life. And so those phases are marked. The kind of ushering into the next phase is your Saturn return. That's the thing that kind of carries you from one phase to the next. So your first Saturn return, what it does is it takes you from the transition of young to middle-aged. You're in the middle now. You're grown. So I always say, like, you're no longer a young adult. When you go through your Saturn return, you transform from young adult into adult. You're just grown. Saturn produces an intensification of responsibility, which then leads to maturity. So typically when you go through your Saturn return, you experience much more kind of stakes in your life kind of increasing, and you kind of approach a point where you realize that like the buck stops with you and that the outcomes in your life, especially over the course of the next 30 years, are kind of really rooted in the decisions that you make now and as well as the mindsets that you have now. And so when you're kind of going through your Saturn return, it's really important to think about like, okay, is this what I want? Is this the type of person that I want to be? If I continue down this path, where will this path take me? And is that the path that I'm looking to be on? And so the Saturn return is a really good opportunity to switch it up. If you're looking like a lot of people will get married during their Saturn return, some people get divorced during their Saturn return, some people change careers completely, go back to school. It's kind of like really big life decisions where you're making them from a much more intentional place. Whereas when you made those decisions when you were younger, it's like, oh, I was young. I kind of just made the decision because I was young. My frontal cortex hadn't developed yet. And by the way, if you're neurodivergent, your frontal cortex develops later. Sorry, prefrontal cortex, but it develops later than 25. So it's like, when you make these decisions, like you kind of made them from the perspective of like, yeah, it's what I wanted. It's kind of the direction I was moving in. But when you go through your Saturn return, you start to see the stakes in a different light and you start to say, oh, okay, like I want this in my life, or this is what I want to prioritize, and therefore that's the direction I'm going to move in. So it produces maturity because you are willingly taking on more responsibility. Or if you are shirking the responsibilities in your life, then what you'll find is that you are much more likely to experience kind of like uh, difficulties in the next 30 years of your life. So it's really important to kind of see what is on your plate and see what you want on your plate, and to be kind of accountable to that and to take action in ways that are supportive of that. And so yeah, the Saturn returns a really intense experience. I'm so glad we're done. I just want to give a caveat too. If you are ruled by Saturn, so if you have a Capricorn rising or an Aquarius rising, typically people, or maybe if you have like prominent Saturn placements, like prominent Capricorn or Aquarius placements in your chart, a lot of times a Saturn return may not feel extra intense. It may be the culmination of the first 30 years of your life just being intense, like period. And so, like for me, for example, I experienced a lot of health breakthroughs in my Saturn return where I got surgery in 2022 for my endometriosis. That was my first time getting excision surgery, thank God. But I still was like mostly bedridden. But it was in the process of my Saturn return that I was able to like go from like a status of like being a person who's been bedridden to like no longer being bedridden. And I had spent 10 years in bed. But during my Saturn return was when I no longer am consider myself bedridden. And so it's like for me, I experienced a lot of like softening, opening, like shifts in really positive ways, even though it was like really, really hard. And like all of my, health progress is like extremely hard one. It was not like it happened to me. It was like I spend 25 hours a week on my foam roller right now, building muscles that I lost while spending 10 years bedridden. So like it was all hard work and everything. But for me, the first kind of like 25 years of my life were so much harder than my Saturn return because I'm an Aquarius rising. So I kind of really enjoyed my Saturn return in a lot of ways. But I know that that's not kind of a universal experience. But I just want to give that caveat if like what we're describing about the Saturn return, if you don't completely resonate with that, it's possible that you're Saturn ruled. So you're like, yeah, the first 30 years were hard. And then, the foundation that you built for yourself in the first 30 years of how you learn to cope with the difficulties in your life, that's something that's going to carry you for life. And that's one of the most important things I think is good to take away from the Saturn return, regardless of if you're Saturn ruled or, you had your traditional really hard Saturn return that was terrifying and hard and, asked a lot of you. I think the important thing to remember is that the things that you gained as a result of this experience, the things you learned, like even what Stevie was saying, what like their takeaways around Alysa Liu, and like this idea that like, after making themselves so small for so long, like, oh, like you can always come back and you can always come back on your terms and you can do it your way. Like that lesson, like that's something that you can hold with you for life. Like the things that you gain as a part of your Saturn return are things that you can build on for the rest of your life. Like they're very foundational to you, and you have a lot of choice on what those things you hold on to are. And so that's like, I think the most important thing to take away, if you're coming out of your Saturn return, is to think about like, okay, like what can I take away from this experience? What, do I want to take away in terms of the direction that I'm heading in my life, and like the things that matter to me, the things that I work hard to prioritize in my life, like those are really good things to take away. And then if you're going into your Saturn return, you have Saturn in Aries. I think the biggest thing to remember is that like rushing your way through there's no rushing through a Saturn return. Saturn, like that's kind of the thing with Aries energy is very much like, well, I wanted it, so let's go get it right now, like why wait? And Saturn is all about the waiting game. Saturn is all about playing the long game and working hard, not seeing results immediately, but trusting that they're coming in the future. You're working towards something, you're building towards something. So I think the most important thing to remember is that like the things that you're looking for, the things that you're striving for, like give yourself 3 years. Like give yourself a little bit of time and space, give yourself a little bit of like struggle, and trust that on the other side of that time and space and struggle is going to be the thing that you're looking for, or it's going to be a realization of why the thing you're looking for isn't really for you or isn't really feasible, or like you'll make much more progress on the thing you're looking for. So kind of allow yourself to find really good strategies for dealing with the frustration of all of that. People with Saturn and Aries, there's going to be a lot of frustration welling up because Saturn produces delays. Saturn really, really forces you to question how badly you really want something, because Saturn's not going to give it to you so easily. So it's really important to like think about like, okay, is this what you want? And are you willing to wait? And so, yeah, I really encourage kind of like trying to find coping strategies that allow you to burn off that frustration. So like this is a great season to go for a boxing class, you know? This is a great season to develop a relationship with whaling on a bag or going for a run or, you know, really like Martian activities, very Aries oriented activities where you're like producing friction and your like cardiovascular is up and you're doing like physical activity. Like this is a really powerful 3 years to focus on that because it can help like off gas some of the frustration that you're experiencing because yeah, I'm sorry, the Saturn return is inherently we were very frustrated for the last 3 years, and we had Saturn in Pisces, which is a shit show. Saturn in Pisces is a hot mess. Like it's like trying to build a building with soup. That's what Saturn in Pisces is like. So we know frustration, I promise. And Saturn in Aries is like trying to build a building with fire. So, you know, that's where we're going with that. So, you know, just allow yourself to be frustrated, allow yourself to like really question like is this what I actually want, this thing that I'm working towards, like what am I working towards, and to kind of orient yourself in that direction and to kind of keep showing up. So yeah, that's my thoughts on the Saturn return. What about you, Stevie?
Good luck.
Mood.
It was a doozy. It was a doozy. When did our Saturn return start?
It was March 7th, 2023, and then it ended February 13th, 2026. And there was a little bit of like in between Saturn in a different sign, but let's keep it simple.
Keep it simple. What did you learn from your Saturn return?
My Saturn is in my first house, so honestly, I didn't really fully understand what I learned until Saturn left Pisces. But what I learned was that I need to stop ascribing like ninth house or 10th house rubrics and frameworks of measuring success onto my first house because those aren't the same. You know, it's like trying to grade a banana on how well it could be an apple. That's basically what I was doing. I was, you know, judging myself and my successes and failures around my Saturn return against a rubric that had nothing to do with what my Saturn return was about. And my Saturn return was about my body and about being in connection to my body and um, taking like being in the driver's seat of my relationship to my body as opposed to like my body taking me like for a ride, because it's been a journey with my body. You know, like I said, I've been, you know, like I've said for the trillionth time, I've been bedridden for 10 years. And so it was like getting to a place where I was healing on a physical, mental, spiritual, emotional level so that I could no longer be bedridden after 10 years. And so that I think was really the kind of big thing that I learned was that I was dealing with a lot of inadequacy and feelings of failure around the fact that like my career is not where I want it to be. Like I don't necessarily have those trappings of like the success that like especially my peers, a lot of my peers have like kind of settled into a nice place in their career that they've wanted over the course of their Saturn return, and like a lot of people are seeing the kind of fruits of the labor that they've worked so hard for in their careers, and I'm not there yet in terms of what I'm looking for my career. And so I was feeling a lot of inadequacy around that, and then I realized that like, oh, I'm my Saturn return was not about my career. My Saturn return was about my relationship to my body. And I have made so many leaps and bounds in my relationship to my body. I have such a deep, strong, enduring relationship with my body. And I think I'm much more able to meet my body's needs without judgment and respond to what my body is asking of me. And that I've built a life that is accommodating to my body, and that's a huge win. And so, yeah, that was my biggest lesson was like, stop, throw out the rubric. I'm using the wrong rubric.
That's so interesting. I never thought about like that, thinking that your Saturn return was supposed to be about one thing when it was actually about something completely different. Yeah.
Yeah, I have all my placements in the house that has to do with like higher thinking, big picture thinking, and career. So like my head is always naturally there. And so that's why it was like I didn't even think to not have my head be there in relation to my Saturn return. My Saturn's in my first house, like it's not there. And it's not in my I don't actually my Saturn isn't in aspect with any other part of my chart. My Saturn is completely disconnected from the rest of the planets in my chart. So like that's why it didn't occur to me because I live up there, and Saturn return forced me to come down to my body. And so yeah, that was a really cool lesson to learn.
What house was my Saturn in?
Your Saturn is in the fourth house. So your Saturn return took place in your fourth house, which is the house of home. It's the house of your inner world, who you are with yourself by yourself. It's your roots, where you come from, your relationship to your mom, your relationship to like the people in your home, all those things.
Yeah. Hmm. That tracks. I think the thing that I learned the most from my Saturn return was that I can and I will push myself to a dangerously depleted place if I continue to not set boundaries or recognize my boundaries or like just really say no and assess, like, okay, I can do that. Should I? And even though I think I can I actually, like, do I actually have the capacity to do that? Or do I feel like I need a justifiable reason to say no to something or to opt out of something? Um, yeah, I never want to be at that place again. But I learned so much trial by fire that if I'm not taking care of myself and I'm not tuning into my capacity and my needs and like reciprocity in my relationships and my work and all those things, like I am not doing anybody in any favors by abandoning myself. I'm not doing myself any favors. I'm not doing my relationships any favors. I'm not doing my work any favors. It's just not a good time. So it's important for me to say no when I want to say no and to say yes when I want to say yes. And I'm just going to see how that goes in this next like season of my life. But I do also know the biggest thing is that I just need to establish those boundaries early on so that I don't have to deal with like a push and pull of like, well, it was okay before, so why isn't it okay now? And it wasn't okay then, so it's not okay now. You know what I'm saying? Yeah. Lessons learned, lessons that I'm very grateful for. I have definitely, definitely learned, and I'm ready to not be in this.
Yeah, that's when I say Saturn rules limits, that's what I mean. It's like, oh, but that used to be fine. It's not fine anymore. And it was, yeah, never fine if you really look under the hood in the first place. That's absolutely what Saturn is here to teach us. And Saturn and Pisces especially is very, very difficult because Pisces energy, like if we think about Pisces energy, I consider it like water vapor. It's like the kind of evaporated water and the moisture that's in the air. So it's like it's very hard to measure that because it's so diffuse, you know, it's so kind of spread out. And so you can fit a lot of molecules of moisture in the air because it's all spread out, you know? So it's like it becomes very difficult to understand like, oh, like this was the line. This was where it was too much. We don't have that. Saturn and Pisces people, we don't have like a clear delineation of when it's too much. So that's the difference between Saturn and Aries. Saturn and Aries people know exactly when it's too much. Like they will bring the hammer down, they will say absolutely the not, get the out of here. Like, whereas we're all like, yeah, no, it's totally fine, it's totally fine. Trevor Noah has this tip that he gives for people with ADHD. This is ADHD specific, but I think it applies to Saturn and Pisces as well, where it's like you kind of like commit to things without fully realizing what it's going to take out of you, and like you can't really know that until you do it. So like you're kind of like then underwater and you're letting people down and all that stuff. So like what he said was he starts with no. Like if people ask him to do stuff, like he starts with no, because he needs to like assess his capacity. He needs to assess what like is really possible for him. And so I think that's like really a lesson for Saturn and Pisces is like you have to start at no and you have to be convinced into yes. You cannot start at yes and convince yourself into no. It's way harder to do it that way. So yeah, that's I think a really nice lesson because it's very difficult for us with Saturn and Pisces. It does not come easy.
If people want to know about their Saturn return or their Saturn placements in general, where would you direct them?
Yeah, so the first thing I would say, if you want to DIY it, then you want to look at the house that your Saturn is in. And so you'll look at, like, for example, if you go to astro.com to find your chart, or no, Cafe Astrology. If you go to Cafe Astrology, I'll link it in the show notes. You can see the little chart, the table where they'll give you like each planet is in this house. So like you look up the house number and then you want to look at like what that house significates. Like what sector of the human experience does that house cover? And then you can think of it like how we just did with Stevie where it's like okay, Stevie's is in the fourth house. The fourth house is all these themes and then Stevie could reflect on like okay, yeah, all those themes were activated in these ways. So that's the DIY approach. If you want like professional support, I do offer readings. I am going to put a Saturn return reading. So if you know, as a listener, I'm going to give listener exclusive first access to the Saturn return reading. So you can see that in the link in the show notes. So yeah, I can give you a personalized, if you're just finishing your Saturn return, we can help ground the lessons you learned. We can contextualize all of it. If there were any particular difficult things you want to unpack further and get some context around, we can do that. Have a plan, strategy for what's happening moving forward. And then if you are just entering your Saturn return, Saturn in Aries, then we can map out like what's the strategy, how do you want to resource yourself to navigate this, what are your goals, what are the kind of metrics of success. I think it would be helpful to come up with metrics of success that are actually relevant to your Saturn return as opposed to what I did, which was have wrong metrics and feel guilty the whole time. So like we can kind of help you strategize and be prepared for your Saturn return as opposed to kind of like winging it like the rest of us did. So yeah, so I would recommend that. And then if you have a Saturn placement that is different than these, I'm happy to still read for your Saturn return anyway. We can either give context if it already happened, or we can prepare you if you're a Saturn in Taurus baby. So because yeah, your baby. If you got Saturn in Taurus, your baby. But yeah, so feel free to check that out in the link in the show notes. Thanks, Stevie.
You Shroot. Oh, that's how I feel
That's a mood.
about Saturn returns. But
But it's done.
it's
You're free. Well, okay, so technically, yes, it's over when Saturn leaves the sign it was in when you were born, but we in the astrology community, especially in the modern astrology community, we kind of consider that the Saturn return, the reverberations of the Saturn return continue until the end of age 33. And so 33 is kind of like the big year of like, okay, well, did you really learn what you were supposed to learn? Did you actually take those takeaways away, or did you or you're not really about that life? Because that's the thing. Saturn is always asking, are you really about it? Because Saturn respects integrity. And so, are you in integrity with the lessons that you learned from your Saturn return? That's what you learn in age 33. So, age 33 people find often quite difficult. So, we get a little bit of a breather now, age 31, 32, but then, get back on the horse age 33 and prove that you learned those lessons for real. And then you're free. But then Saturn starts squaring and doing other stuff to you. By the time you're 35, you go through your first Saturn square. Listen, Saturn has high expectations for us. Saturn just wants us to be great. So yeah, but at least you're free from the immediacy and the intensity of the actual Saturn return. So yeah,
I'll
all
take
right,
what I can get.
exactly. We ready? Horoscope? You want to get into it?
Yes.
Tarot horoscope. So
Yes.
this is the horoscope for. Let me get the dates. February 24th to March 24th, 2026. And if you're listening outside these times, you can take what resonates, you can leave what doesn't. And what deck are we using for the tarot, Stevie?
This time we're using the Marigold Tarot deck. hmm
My
hmm
fave.
It felt so, I don't know, necessary. Okay. I was really feeling the cards that we pulled this time. Okay, as always, I pulled three cards. First one we got is the Fool. Hooray! I love this Fool. And then the second card we have is the Page of Cups. And then the last card we have is the King of Cups, which is amazing. We're in Pisces season, question
Mm-hmm.
mark.
Sure are.
The cups is making sense. That's true. Cups, water, emotion, fish, all of it. Okay. So how do I even start? The Fool. New beginnings. As we know, it's the first card in the tarot deck in the major arcana. It represents new beginnings and doing without overthinking. I know that we also just started like the year of the fire horse with like the Lunar New Year and all of that good stuff. And we're also like inching our way to the astrological new year once Aries season starts too. So there's a lot of freshness happening, a lot of newness. I live in California. I live in Long Beach, so it's always kind of sunny here. But I recently started to notice that like all the spring flowers are really blossoming. They're thriving. It smells really good. There has been a lot of rain. There's so much flooding in Long Beach, but that's okay. It's not okay, but you know, it is what it is right now. But there's just like, it just feels like an opportune time to start again. Whether you want to try something for the first time that you want to be a novice at, or you want to pick up something that you had spent time on before, but maybe needed to step away from, or maybe it felt like stagnant or heavy or too stressful. This card is just about doing. Like it's action based, it's not thinking, it's just letting yourself go where your heart wants to, where your creative energy is leading you, where your intuition is leading you. I think I don't know. I think like we've had this card show up pretty consistently actually in the past few months. So I think it's just reiterating like now's the time. We've been talking about it. Don't talk about it. Be about it. Just do it. Just do it. That should be a slogan for something. I, as a therapist, like I'm very much on like therapy talk right now. Um, but one of the like videos I saw about depression was talking about motivation or lack of motivation. And I think what people always kind of want is like the motivation or the inspiration to do a task that they don't want to. But if you're going to wait for it, it's never going to come. What you have to do is just do the thing. Do the thing, and then the motivation will follow. Momentum comes first and then motivation. If you don't want to fold your laundry, which I am want to do, the best thing that I can do is as soon as I think I have to fold my laundry, I have to start folding my laundry. And it's just, it takes away the opportunity for analysis paralysis to overthink it instead of just doing it because I'm spending way more time thinking about it, thinking about how I don't want to do it, thinking about how then I'm going to have to like put my clothes away or anything like that. But just doing it, taking the step builds the momentum, which brings in the motivation. So that is what I want to give to you with this Fool card. As soon as you have a thought, just do it. And I'm not saying like, I'm going to trust that you have discernment. I'm not telling you to do something like impulsive or reckless in a way that's harmful to you or someone else. But if there's something that you've been called to do, just do it, especially if you've been ruminating on it for quite some time. Now's the time to just do it. But that's the Fool. Dare to dream, live to dance, etc., etc. True.
Yeah. Oh, it's so wild to me how many times this card has come up, but like, yeah, it's really it's so important to be starting now if you haven't started already with whatever you're supposed to start with. And I think another kind of really important thing to keep in mind is that if there are certain um emotional regulation strategies, sensory, needs, stimulation needs that can help you reduce that friction, reduce that barrier to access the thing that you're trying to do, I would really think about that. We talked about that briefly during Virgo season, and we do have an eclipse in Virgo on March 3rd. It's a lunar eclipse, so it is going to be in Virgo, and so I think that it is really important to kind of as you're like, okay, I need to do this thing, it's like, okay, well, let me do a quick check. So I think laundry is a great example. I'm literally thinking about the laundry I have to fold and how I've not been folding it. But like I know for me, like sitting there and folding laundry, like I can't just sit there and fold laundry. It's not stimulating enough for me. And so what I do is I have a podcast that I listen to only when I fold laundry. So like I can't listen to the podcast if I'm not folding laundry. So and it's something I want to listen to. And so that's like one of my ways that I motivate myself is that like I save this podcast and I'm like, okay, perfect. I'm gonna fold my laundry and listen to this podcast. So I think that like, understanding that that's something that's really important for me. Like I needed that level of stimulation mentally, and I also needed the like excitement to look forward to that podcast, even if I'm not looking forward to laundry. So thinking about things from that perspective, like what is going to help you, there's another trick of habit stacking where it's like if you already are doing something. So like for me, I have a really hard time initiating eating. And that's something I'm really struggling with, especially during like Pisces season. Like when we get into the Pisces soup, which we are in the Pisces soup now, when all the inner planets are kind of largely in Pisces, like hunger cues are really hard. They don't come in strong enough for me to act on until it's like I'm really hungry and it's dangerous now. And so I don't really feel hungry like when I should feel hungry. And so what I do is like, I when I have to go to the bathroom, I have to go to the bathroom, like so typically I will stack, okay, let me go food prep. Like I've gone to the bathroom, I'm up, I have the motivation to like do something. I before I go sit down again and lose the motivation, let me go at least prep the food. I don't have to eat the food, but let me prep the food. But then by the time I've prepped the food, I've experienced the senses of smelling the food. I've like been tactile with the food, getting it all together. Like then now I'm hungry. Now I'm really tapped into how hungry I feel. So you have to kind of like maybe take a little bit of a non-linear approach to just doing it. Like I know we said just do it, but like it's okay to like take an assessment of like, okay, like I understand that like motivation is the thing I'm struggling with. Like resistance to this thing is the thing I'm struggling with. So here's how I'm going to kind of figure out what is the barrier and how do I make the friction between me and this task as minimal as possible. What can I do to like pave that? So, like I said, giving yourself something to look forward to, habit stacking, these are all different strategies you can use. I recommend trying that out. Because, yeah, the eclipse is coming March 3rd, and you want to make sure that you're meeting your sensory and stimulation needs during this period of time because you will feel really dysregulated if you don't. So,
And as always, start small.
mhm.
Assess like what's the most you're willing to try. If I'm thinking about like laundry and I get overwhelmed with the amount of laundry I have to fold. I know for me, once it comes to underwear and socks, I can't, I lose momentum. It becomes too cerebral. I have to find socks. But if I can even just say, like, okay, well, I'll just fold shirts or I'll just fold pants. Pants for me, easy, so easy. Shirts, middle grade. Socks, too much. So if I can just do the pants, do the shirts if I feel so called, then that's good enough. Or if there's something that you want to try these things with something that doesn't bring up a lot of stress or even shame, you can do that. If, like, I don't know, I'm trying to think about something like, okay, this is so random. But for me, sometimes I will just keep my TV on Roku City. And the whole time I'm like, I should really turn off this TV, but I don't. I don't know. Maybe something about it is comforting, but like, I also don't want to waste the electricity. As soon as I have that thought, I'm like, okay, well, I'll just turn it off. Just start something small. Practice with something that doesn't matter that much to you or something that isn't as like shame forward for you, just so you can build the practice of doing it, exercising the muscles for it. Yeah. Yeah.
That's gorgeous. I love it. What's our second card?
Our second card is the Page of Cups. Here we go. Whee. Okay, this card, Pisces season just makes sense. This card is all about being open, like the Fool, being curious, and being creative. Dream, connect with your emotions. The cups are water. Water represents your emotions, your subconscious, etc. In tandem with the Fool, I think this card is like there are new opportunities, but also like new opportunities to create something. And it doesn't have to be like, I'm creating a collage or I'm creating this art piece or I'm going to choreograph something. Like it could literally just be like creating a meal or like creating a routine, creating some somatic practice, anything like that, really. Um, Things are going to fall more into place the more that you just take the step, like the next step. But you have to follow your intuition and you have to notice that the path is unfolding. Like Alysa Liu, our patron saint of this podcast today. Like, again, it's that concept of I did it this way for so long and it was unsustainable. It was actually very harmful to me. And I'm going to step away. And I'm going to step away forever, actually. That was the plan. But I saw an interview with her where she said that, like, after 2 years, like 2 years into her retirement, she had not skated at all. So she went from skating for like 11 years, maybe, probably every day, to 2 years of not skating at all. And then in secret, she just started skating a little bit every once in a while on her own, in her words, for a quick dopamine hit, which is great. But then that just unfolded I'm going to assume, the love that she had for skating, the joy that she had for skating, the creativity, the flow of it, which led her to go to the Olympics. But that wasn't always the plan. The plan was just like, I'm going to do this and I'm going to do it for me. And then I'm going to rebuild this on my terms. So you don't have to think about going to the Olympics. You just have to think about putting on the skates again if you want to. One thing leads to another, and then the next thing leads to the next thing, and so on and so forth. But all you need to focus on is the step in front of you, the next step. You don't have to think 10 steps ahead. You don't have to think about 3 years ahead. You just have to think about one step and then see what unfolds, and then take another step and see what unfolds. But overall, the focus is to have fun, to release the reins, literally just stop taking it so seriously. I think so many times I hear people have these like ideas and dreams of, I want to write, I want to create. For me, I want to learn how to skate, not ice skate, but like I want to do these things. I want to take a burlesque class, like a dance class, whatever. But then I can't because XYZ, because you're thinking about it too much. But also, of course, like access to resources, XYZ, blah, blah, blah. Um, but there's this pressure to be good at it. There's this pressure to make it worth it. If I'm not sticking with it, if I'm not doing something with it or making a name for myself because of it, then it doesn't matter. But that's not fair. I've taken so many first classes and then got to decide, like, actually, this isn't for me. I took a Pilates class. I think maybe I took 3 Pilates classes in the past few months. And in my head, I was like, this will be the kind of exercise that will finally get me connected to my body. And then I took the classes and I really enjoyed them, but they triggered my vertigo. And I was like, this is not how I want to connect with my body. But at least I tried. Or like I took a pottery class and I was like, I'm going to be so art ho. Like I'm going to make all these little things. I took it and I was like, this hurts. This hurts my hands. I don't want to do this anymore. And why does everything look like a phallus when you like work the clay? I don't want to deal with that. Oh my gosh. But yeah, but there are some things that I did do and they were so fun in college, in undergrad. Like when I say just take one step out of your comfort zone, that actually comes from me taking a step out of my comfort zone. My first year of undergrad, I took an intro to acting class, and that class got me out of my comfort zone. And it was so much fun. And like my professor was like, just take one step, just commit to one step out of your comfort zone. And then I did. And that was actually like my North Star for the rest of that year of college. And it actually like led me to audition for a musical. And then I was in that musical. And then I was never in a musical again. And I was never in an acting class again. And that's okay because I had fun. And it didn't have to become my personality, but it is something that I continue to carry with me in any way, shape, or form. Maybe even this podcast. I don't know. Well, literally, because I'm saying the same that I heard like 13 years ago. But yeah, have fun with it. That's the whole point. And like in this world where we're so inundated with the worst news possible, with such heavy realities, which sets fear and all of that stuff, that is so real. And that is important for us to like know about, bear witness to, be part of. And at the same time, we cannot do that if we are not taking care of ourselves and fulfilling ourselves and practicing in these creative, emotional, weird experiences. Like these don't get to exist without the other. Okay, those are my thoughts.
Yeah, and I love the Alyssa Liu tie-in because when I was watching the interviews that she did last night, a lot of what she talked about was that she just wanted, she considers herself an artist more so than an athlete. She's like, I really respect the athleticism of this sport, but that she really connected to the artistry of her sport, and that's what she wanted to share with other people, and that like she didn't come to the Olympics to win gold. She came to the Olympics to show people and to impart upon people what skating makes her feel. And that she was like, I don't really like, she was like, the gold medal, I can lose this, but what matters to me are the memories, and what matters to me is that I connected with people and that people felt connected to this art that I make. And that really moved me, because it was like, yeah, that is the point. The point is connection. The point is not the medal, right? Like the point is the she said the memory of the experience was what really mattered more to her than the medal, and I just love that. But yeah, I totally agree. And like, we're actually this whole month we're it's Mercury retrograde. And it's Mercury retrograde in Pisces. So, I think taking the directive that like you need to just have fun right now and not think too seriously about the outcome of those things that bring you fun and bring you joy, I think is very important, because on February 26th, Mercury stations retrograde in Pisces, and Mercury doesn't station direct again until, I already lost the date. I think it's March, it's like end of March. Um, March 20th. And again, it's in Pisces. Like it's in Pisces the whole time. So it's like, a Mercury retrograde in Pisces, Mercury retrogrades are a period of time that ask us to revisit and reorient the way that we think or approach this specific thing, that Mercury is revisiting. And so we're being asked to kind of reorient the way that we approach the Piscean section of our chart. And so that has a lot to do with intuition. That has a lot to do with where our intuition leads us creatively, and to like Stevie said, going with the flow of that, and how Alysa Liu totally went with the flow of that. And that's like what brought her to like her gold medal. And so it's like this month, it's really important to not be outcome driven this month. It's important to be process driven, and process specifically being fun. Like that the process is fun. So I think it's really good to think about like whatever things you have on the docket to do this month, how can you make them fun? How can you make them really enjoyable? And how can you focus more on the fun than on the outcome? There's plenty of time in Aries season to think about outcomes, to think about measurement of success, goals, what direction you want to go in, knowing now what you know. Like all the kind of serious forward movement stuff is very valuable to think about during Aries season. But right now in Pisces season, it's really important to just be with the fun, be with the process. And so, yeah, I think that's kind of the most important thing to remember when things feel like they may not be moving in a straight line, when things feel like they may not be moving forward, like to really remember that, like, yeah, okay, for this next month, outcomes are not the point. The point is the process. And so how can you make the process fun? And so I really encourage, like, especially if you feel right now, like, I think there's a lot of people that I know right now that, like, your time doesn't feel like it belongs to you right now. And that's like a real thing. And especially like, a lot of the people who listen to this podcast, a lot of the people that I do readings for, a lot of people who tend to operate in the orbit of like my kind of clientele, like, your jobs are very serious. Your jobs are very like, important to the fabric of society. And that what that means is that as the fabric of society is running through a shredder right now, like your time doesn't really feel like it belongs to you because you're constantly putting out these fires. And so I think with that in mind, it's really important to understand that like it's really, really essential to your survival, and to understand that like if you are in the mix of something where you feel like your time doesn't belong to you and you're feeling really strapped and burnt out from that, like I'll be honest, like the astrology does not imply letting up of that until like maybe May. And like even then, like it's really not really gonna let up that much. And then like it's kind of a little intense for the rest of the year. Like there's really no breaks this year. It's really all gas, no breaks. So like finding moments, like going moment to moment. Like can you find like I was talking with one of my clients in a reading yesterday. It's like, can you find glimmers? And can you really focus on moments that make you feel sparkly, moments that make you feel alive, moments that make you feel, grateful for the universe, grateful for the people around you, grateful for, you know, the things that make you you, like can you find those moments and can you hold on to them? So like a big one for me, we've talked about this before, but like a big one for me is like, seeing a butterfly outside, and especially like what color the butterfly is, like that tells me a little bit about like what kind of like moment I'm in right now. I like to look up the symbolism of that color butterfly and stuff and think about it. And so like just moments like that, it's something as simple as like creating like a ritual around having tea, and like the tea being the thing that like you take that moment with the tea and you're like, yeah, I love this. This is like a real moment for me. Like I really look forward to this at the end of every day. Like, that kind of thing where you can create moments for yourself that make you really glad to be alive, and that you can really enjoy in the face of all the ways that your time doesn't belong to you, and that like to be less outcome oriented this month and more like how can you make the process as fun as possible even within the real life scary serious constraints that you're under. So yeah, that's what I would say.
It's up to us, I fear, to carve out that time and the practice for ourselves to breathe and to relax or to express emotions or to not do anything at all. Oy, oy, oy. I guess that brings me to our next card. You ready for the last one?
Please.
Okay. Last card, King of Cups. Okay, because the first one, it's Paige. It's like kind of a teenager. Imagine like teenager of emotions. They're there, they're present, they're kind of like potentially all over the place, and they're very visceral. When it comes to the king, imagine like post Saturn return person. There's like a balance of emotions. Like the emotions are there, you're having them, you're expressing them without them taking over and derailing you. I think I'd be curious to know, or I guess I'm not going to know, but I will prompt you to think about like how your emotions take up space in your life. I know a lot of people who do so much work to suppress their emotions or suppress their emotions around certain people. And then it spills out in all these other ways that are so harmful and painful and just have really big impacts on their lives. Whether or not they're like, no, I'm holding it together. I'm cool. You're not cool. We know, we can see you. Like you're not putting up the front that you think you are. And then there are people who are like so expressive of their emotions. Maybe they're like really quick to cry, really quick to yell or shut down, like whatever it is, like the emotion takes the wheel. The emotion is driving the bus and it is driving how you communicate, it's driving how you think about yourself, how you relate to other people, how you want to be in relation with other people. So the king of cups, the king of emotions, I guess, is more so about trying to find a balance. If you feel like you shut down easily and you avoid your emotions, the invitation is for you to be a little more present with them. Like it's like opposite action, basically. Like if you're shutting down, the practice is to be present with them and sit with them and hear them out, listen to what they have to say, and also tend to what the emotion is asking for. If you're feeling angry, anger is usually signifying a no. So, what is your body? What is your mind, your spirit, whatever? What is it saying no to? And what's the opposite of that? That might indicate what the yes is. So, just doing a little work there can do so much. But if you're also like your emotions are taking over, that might be a clue that they're taking over. And maybe you need to take a beat, be by yourself, be with nature, talk to someone else who may offer a grounding presence. Like, what do you need so that you can go from like these big, intense emotions to a more like regulated place? And when we say regulated, we don't mean numb. We don't mean there's an absence of emotions. It just means that you are still in control. You are driving the bus and tending to your emotions. Because I think as we're talking about Saturn returns and all of that stuff, I think all of these things, I think, come to the surface. At least at my Saturn return, I don't know. But I feel like it does bring up emotions. It does bring up a lot of like wounds. It's for you to really take stock of like, this is a trigger. This is where my like reaction, my coping skills usually go. Is that something that I want to continue or is that something that I want to change? It's almost like doing the condo method, but for your emotions and your behaviors and your ways of thinking. So but that also requires you to take a beat and to add a second or a minute or something in between the trigger and the response or reaction. Um, yeah, and if there's conflict or contention, now is a time to honor your boundaries. Now's the time to practice communicating them. I think I don't even know. I don't even know what to say about that. So I'm going to give that to Shroot.
Yeah, it's a little bit of a wobbly time to be alive right now because we are in this little weird transition between Pisces and Aries. And this is a big transition because of the Saturn and Neptune presence in Aries now, where it used to be in Pisces for quite a while, and then now suddenly it's in Aries. So we're feeling this vibe shift in the collective at large, where things are moving away from the kind of like lofty potentiality, the dreaming of what could be, and we're moving more toward like, okay, but like let's really do this. Let's really make, something shake. So we're collectively we've shifted, but then on like individual levels, we're kind of like still a little bit like I think there's still a little bit of resistance. Like, so, one thing I've been kind of I spent all of last year trying my very hardest to prepare my community to be like, hey, the old world you knew is gone. Like, you need to say goodbye. You need to grieve. And so I think this is really our last kind of like, well, with these planets in Pisces, this is our last moment of like holding on to the world that we kind of knew before. And I think there's still a little bit of like, maybe we don't need to say goodbye. Maybe we could dream of like the way that things could stay the way that they've always been. Like, and I think that as the planets move, so like on March 6th, for example, Venus is going to move into Aries. And then, March 20th, the sun is going to move into Aries. And then, like as the kind of time goes on, like it's going to sink in like, oh no, like we're in this, it's the future now and we're here, like whether we want to be or not, like we are. So it's like we're in this little bit of like soupy kind of weird time where things feel a little bit Piscean and hard to grasp, but then also like the clarity of reality is kind of reaching us in very real ways. And so, yeah, I think like the kind of most effective way to navigate that is like what Stevie's saying with the King of Cups of like being able to like be with all of that and hold space for all of that, but not let all of that drive the bus, right? To let you still be in the front seat with that. And so, what are the ways that you can cultivate presence and acceptance for all the things that are coming up for you right now, even if all those things coming up for you right now are like huge and overwhelming and like a lot. And so I think just kind of remembering that like, hey, this transition is, temporary, and that like the intensity of this year is something that is like with with no historical precedence. Like humanity has not, I mean, I'm sure like maybe like 3,000 years ago or something like that, the astrology could have been this crazy, but like there's like transits happening that like haven't happened in 6,000 years, and there's like six of those happening this year, like so it's like a lot of like history making transits happening all in one year. So like if it feels like a lot, that's because it is a lot. And so to kind of expect yourself like I think what I was talking about with the Saturn return, like, your metrics of success this year, I think it's really important to kind of, if you are attached to previous metrics of success that worked for you in the old world, like they're not going to be the same this year. So like I think Alyssa, let's bring it back one more time. The measures of success that were expected of her was that she needed to skate every day. She needed to listen to do the music, skate to the music that her coaches and everything suggested for her. She needed to like be really dedicated to the craft. She needed to devote her whole entire life. She couldn't really control her physical presentation, what she wore, how her hair looked. All these things needed to be tightly controlled so that she could be the successful athlete that, she wanted to be. And what she kind of learned, by doing and by experiencing was that she could be the most successful athlete in her space doing it her way. She could dye her hair the way she wanted, she could have the piercings she wanted, she could dress the way she wanted, perform the way she wanted, pick the songs she wanted, do the practice schedule that she wanted, and the only way she learned these things is because she got in the ring and she tried. So it's like, whatever metrics of success that you were using before, like it's not relevant to this new world that we're living in. This new world that we're living in, like embodiment and authentic embodiment is going to be kind of like the driving force that moves you forward in your world. It may not be the same level of success that Alyssa, achieved, but it is going to be the thing that gets you to the next step of where you're trying to go. And so really, really making sure that that's a priority for yourself of like, when you check out, when you get swept away by the emotions being too big, you're kind of losing the possibility that, hey, like being embodied in this moment, existing in the moment without expecting it to lead to success, without expecting it to lead to anything, and just kind of like seeing who you are in this moment and accepting that version of you, is going to bring you so much kind of abundance, and it's going to bring you so much like kind of like properly ushering you into this new world and like helping smooth the transition of how wobbly it feels to kind of make you feel like you're a little bit more steady through all of this. So yeah, that's where I'll leave that.
Well, I hope you all have fun making sense of that and integrating it into your life, into this month. We will have so much fun.
Yeah, God help us. But yeah, no, like I think, I'm really, really hopeful for what all is possible for us. And I think that we're gonna show ourselves new ways that we can exist that we didn't think were possible. And we're gonna get to enjoy them, and we're gonna get to really like um build lives that are much more supportive to like who we are now and where we are now, as opposed to kind of like trying to follow a script, because we lit those scripts on fire last year. They don't exist anymore. So this is a great time to just do it. Do what you want to do, as long as you're not hurting anybody. Do it. Like, so yeah. All right, well, it was so lovely to chat with you again, Stevie. If you are interested in learning more about what the astrology, or like if you got anything really wild going on in your life, Stevie and I do offer a joint reading. It's called Dance with Datura. And the goal of the reading is to use astrology and tarot as self-reflective tools to help you bloom even in the dark. So we hold space for the parts of you that feel the scariest. And the most uncertain, and we give you kind of like practical and emotionally supportive strategies that can help you move through whatever transition you're going through in your life. So we will have the link for that in the show notes. And I highly encourage, this is a great time, especially with the Pisces Mercury retrograde. Like, this is a great time to get a reading with either of us, both of us, to kind of help get your head on straight a little bit. So, yeah.
All right, y'all. I'll see you when I see you.
Yeah. Yeah. We'll see you in Aries season. Buckle up.
Oh,
All
Lord.
right. Take care. Love you. Bye.
Bye. Love you.